So just a quick show of hands again, who has updated already? Okay. So who has any feedback on if they like it or not, apart from Anthony, because I know he's had his feedback. But yeah, any sort of comments? Anyone sort of notice anything different? No? Okay, so then we'll talk a little bit about that after my computer stops crashing. So I think I'll get started whilst I'm just rebooting my machine. The difference between WordPress sort of release cycles, version 4 or version 3, even though it's considered a core update, just as much effort goes into 3.7 to 3.8 to 3.9 and 4 and 4.1. So, there are, quite often you'll hear sort of, comments like, it's not very different and it should be different because it's version 4, but there's a lot of effort goes into every release. And think about from your web browser, it's constantly being updated, your desktop's constantly updated. WordPress has, the WordPress team are very committed to providing updates in a timely manner and improving the overall, structure of WordPress. So you're going to see, that's not very good. Sorry, guys. Worked in rehearsal. Try that again. Okay, so basically we're just going to cover what's new, and I think the important thing is when you're thinking about WordPress, version 4 to 4.1, there are going to be big changes. And I can say I've updated probably about 20 or so production sites. I started off with a few of my own personal sites, then I went to sort of the low traffic sites and then the larger sites, and haven't had any issues at all. Now that is sites that are regularly updated anyway, so if something is stopping you from updating, there could be good reason for that. So I've read horror stories of people saying ran the update to 4, but as it turned out they actually hadn't updated their site in quite a while, and the issue was with compatibility issues with themes or with plugins. And generally speaking, outdated themes and plugins or poorer quality. So that's a good, if you can't update, there's a fundamental flaw somewhere. So there's an overview. We'll walk through each feature. Again, if from 3.8 to 3.9 to 4 to 4.1, these are the sorts of changes you'll see all the time anyway. There's a couple there that I really like, and there's a couple there that are okay. So basically, I think one of the biggest features that you'll see that might not impact a lot of us, but I think it has a massive impact on WordPress as an adoption globally. We sort of take it for granted that, everyone speaks English, but the reality is that if you sort of see this, and this is kind of like when you install, set up an iPhone or your desktop, you pick your language and everything is in that native language. This is a big deal, and if you choose your language, it'll actually install it in that language. All the dialogue is in that language, and as you can see, you can change it in settings. I've got there German, so that's what it looks like. The new grid view for the media library, Anthony's loves it. No, it's different. And I think if you're sort of used to looking at managing a lot of media, you're probably still wanting more. You're probably used to, why can't we do things like we would in a folder view on our local system? But I would say that those sorts of things are coming. This is a step forward. It's definitely a lot nicer. You can definitely see a lot more. I like it. It's sort of one of the features that I think most people will notice straight away. But is it exactly where we're going to go? Well, it's not, there's always work to be done with these things. More support for OEmbed. So OEmbed is a way of delivering content via a single URL. And WordPress has supported it already for quite a while. So you might have noticed if you're posting a YouTube link on a post or a page, you just need the URL, and automatically when you publish, the video will render. Now we've got more support, plus also live previews, which again is a big deal. So if you working in the editor a lot, these sorts of features really help you sort of get the composition of things, help you actually see what's going to be displayed. That's kind of cool. That's a nice one. So in terms of OEmbed support, the ones in bold that you probably can't see too good, but they're the new ones that are supported. But, Instagram, Imager, SlideShare, the example was TED Talks. This, I think, you'll see that will keep growing. So I think it's kind of it's kind of neat to see that list expanding. This is OEmbed providers. It's not something that WordPress is doing. WordPress is just now supporting them. So that's the current list, and I think that's pretty cool. I remember when I first saw the YouTube one, I thought that's kind of funky. Sorry? Where was that list? That list was taken from the WordPress Codex. So that's the official list, and the ones that are in bold are the ones that they've just added. So it's sort of clear that they're extending that list and they're going to be adding stuff to it. So pretty much just means that a chunk of content can be represented by a URL. So you just put the URL in and you'll actually see the live preview now. So yeah, so that's kind of cool.
What about if you want to limit the related videos?
Good question. You have to add parameters to it. Yep. So if you want to control some of those things, like whether there's Chrome around it or related videos after it's finished playing, you'd have to do a bit more. Yep. But for example, I think it's not listed there, but there's just supported YouTube playlists, for example, which is another type of OEmbed format. And there's another one that's playlists. I think it's one of the music providers. So, sure. Yeah, that's right. So this is probably the coolest thing that I like. I don't know if anyone likes this or hates this, but I love it. I spend a lot of time in the editor, scrolling up and down, and always, scrolling and then losing my sort of toolbar. You can't sort of demonstrate it with a screenshot, but essentially when you're scrolling this content, when you get to the top, the toolbar actually stays at the top. It's sort of pinned, they call it pinning to the top. I love it. It's pretty sad that I love this feature, but I do love this feature in WordPress. But if you spend a lot of time editing content, you will really start loving. Sorry? No, it's by default now. Yep. Or it's included in the editor. So it's just good because in the past you'd be scrolling and you'd have different levels of scrolling, whereas this just keeps the content editor window accessible at all times, so you can edit the controls.
It's even better in
distraction-free mode. So for those who don't know, you can hit this and basically it just turns off everything and you just have this white screen with just content. And if you're focusing on content, that's also really good. So distraction-free mode, thanks for pointing that out, Chris. New plugin installation experience. And what this means is that now when you're installing plugins, there's a little bit more information, and which I don't have a screenshot of, no. When you actually click on a plugin, the screen's different as well, which provides more information. And why is this useful? It's good for a whole bunch of reasons, but if you're selecting a plugin, you ideally want as much information on that plugin in terms of ratings, how many downloads. Why? Because it gives us a good indication that we're dealing with something that's might have, be higher quality. We'd like to know, when is the last update? 2 weeks ago? Probably better than something that's 1 year ago. So really, it helps us select, perhaps better plugins. And it's good for plugin developers as well, because they can also use that real estate to market their plugin and, show what they've got. Another sort of cool thing they've got is beta testing. So if you sort of like living on the bleeding edge and you want to sort of contribute to something that you think you really want, but developers who are writing stuff really need feedback from people using this stuff, you can actually select beta testing as well, which is really good because what it means is that we get official release supported plugins quicker if the ecosystem supports developers. So I think also that is probably, I won't say another favourite one because I don't tend to haven't really used it that much as the content editor, but I think this will make I think it's a big improvement. It's a big step forward. New widget customizer panel. So now you get the little panel there, widgets. That's something, if you're a developer, there's some new API stuff that you should probably look into. Again, probably something you probably won't notice, but it's definitely there. Accessibility features, a lot more support for keyboard support. This again is important. A lot of it's behind the scenes. We don't see this, a lot of us don't use it, but again, it helps cater to a larger percentage of the population and means that we're working with a platform that has a lot more support when it comes to accessibility, which is a good thing. For developers, updated external libraries. Again, for most of us, it probably doesn't mean much, but you probably noticed that the TinyMCE, which is the editor, has an update. So there's a few bugs that people might have had in that hopefully have been fixed, and also some other libraries that a lot of what WordPress does relies on these things. So if you're a developer, this is probably a good thing as well. How do you update? Okay, so one of the questions that I've sort of seen the most is, should I update? How do I update? For major, what's called core releases, so 3.0, 4.0, they're not automatic. They're not background updates. So you have to go in and click the button. So if you have a look at this message is what you'll see. Click the button, click update now, and it just works. Now, as I said, I've done it on quite a few sites. I asked a few of the other members, have they done it? They've also done it on a bunch of sites. Most people here put up their hand. It works, do it. It's 2014. It's not just feature improvements, also security updates. You need to get into the habit of updating regularly. So definitely the best way to think of it is you should have backups anyway. You shouldn't be waiting for updates to make sure you've got backups, but definitely make sure that you've got file and database backups. If you're not sure of what to do, definitely grab someone afterwards. Come and grab me. I'll point you in the right direction. But it's more important to be dealing with issues because you've updated than to just putting off the inevitable and sitting on a very old version, because that's going to lead to heartache. Again, the problems that I've seen people run into on various lists and forums have been compatibility issues with themes and plugins, and generally speaking because they haven't been updated in a long time. So they've sort of used 4 as a reason to go and update everything, and all of a sudden things break. And, to be realistic, things do break. Plugin developers might abandon a plugin, as is the theme developers. Third parties might get in and hack, core files, make changes to, ways that they probably shouldn't. Those sorts of things can contribute to an update breaking something. And once in a while, things do go wrong. So, I think the main thing is if you've got a backup, run your updates regularly, come to meetups like this where you get to sort of talk to people. But the update I've found has been seamless. Has anyone had problems with the update? Which is pretty good. I mean, that's saying something. I mean, that's good because everyone's keeping their sites updated.
The only thing that I noticed is that you have to log in again once you run it, and it's meant to do that.
Yep, okay.
So that took me by surprise. Maybe you shouldn't have to do this, but I did, and it's fine.
Yep.
But yeah, they're all make you log in again.
So everybody has a different opinion, a personal preference on when you should update. Should you wait till the second it's released and then click update? Usually my personal preference is to wait a couple of days just to let the sort of dust settle, but not too longer after that. Most managed WordPress hosting providers will have probably done the same thing. So if you're using a managed WordPress host, they will have already updated you, most of them. The main ones will, which is good.
I had one issue before. I used to have on my menu a sort of drop-down arrow.
Yep.
Arrow, you use a code, ampersand, and then code. And that stopped working after the update.
Okay. Not sure. Send it to me, have a look. Yep. I don't know, you'll get some of those sorts of things. I've seen quite a few. I've seen a few issues with the content editor, but the content editor is, that sort of project exists outside of WordPress, and that's notorious for stripping things and trying to do sort of smart formatting things that trying to help us, but sometimes if we're working with code or special characters, that can be a problem. Okay, so update settings. So you should be getting from 3.7 to 3.8, and the minor releases should be just happening automatically now. You should be getting an email saying, if you're on something current, you'll be getting an email saying, we've just updated your site, and I don't know how many sort of millions and trillions of sites that they've already in this cycle. But if you want to change this, and I see a lot of developers recommending that people turn this off. I'm in the camp of updating sort of frequently and often. So I like to turn these sorts of things on, but know about them and make sure I've got good backups. But the WordPress has a page on the codex that talks about configuring automatic background updates. You can configure this in your WP config. Plus, someone pointed out to me a handy plugin called WP Updates Settings, and pretty much that just gives you an interface for different email address for notifications, whether you want background updates on or off, translations, plugins, multi-site, a whole bunch of things. Everything that's possible to configure just gives you a nice sort of GUI for it. You want more information on it? Version 4, there's the changelog. There's also links for developers as well. So if you're developing themes, plugins, you're probably well ahead of this sort of stuff anyway. But if you want information, there it is. And that's it. If there's any questions or comments, come and grab me or contact me, and I'll throw over to Amelia for the next one. Thank you.
I just wanted to go through a feature that I don't see a lot of people use, but I think is a really interesting feature to use in terms of getting your content found a little bit easier, but get it found in search engines a bit more. And a lot of marketers will talk about creating a landing page and putting in, all your most important links into that page and having that, and customizing that, optimizing that for your audience. And one thing that I don't see used often enough is category pages. So category pages are already set up with all your posts there, all the nice links, all the juicy content in there. But there is a feature within a couple of themes, and I'll just show it to you as an idea to investigate, is that it gives you an extra area in the category page when you go to edit the category information to add in some content before your posts appear. And you can do a whole heap of different things with this. So I'm actually in like a private mode at the moment with my browser here. So for instance, if I Google the term premise membership, if you look a little bit down here, you see how I've got my link just there, and that's actually a category page that I've customised with, custom heading and some custom description there. So that's something that's found in the search engines when you search for it. A similar one, this is where I get most of my traffic, is if people use Google the term WordPress and Git, and this is something that a lot of people are investigating because it's a nice way of doing your code, but I'm found second after WordPress's GitHub. So that's also a category page. And when you go to those particular pages, so for the WordPress and Git one, I've got a little bit of information there about what the page is about. And then underneath is my list of posts. Okay, so people can then go through it. So, and you've got the featured image appearing there and your little blurb and things like that. So it's rather than trying to embed all your links and embed all that information into a page, you could look at putting all that information or your custom information into a category page, optimizing it for SEO and getting that found in the search engines. And the same goes for Premise. Premise is a plugin that's not used or not available at the moment, but I get found for my tutorials quite often. I do video tutorials, so that's what I get found for. So if you go into WordPress and you go into edit a category, this is what you've got at the moment. So you've got things such as your name, the slug, which is found in your permalink or your URL, and you've also got the description. So that's what's there by default. Now I'm just going to bring up an example, and this is with the Genesis framework. So in here, we've got, apart from those top areas, we've then got these details here, which is your archive settings. So this is where you can write a headline for the top of your category page. And if I just expand this a bit more, you can then add in some content here, and you can actually use HTML tags if you want to. You can use short codes in here as well. So if you've got a short code for an opt-in form or something like that, you can add that in as well. There is a little tweak that you would need to make with your theme. It's just a little bit of code, but you can add that information in. Underneath, you'll see we've got some theme SEO settings. So those two pages I showed you that show up in Google, I don't use Yoast, I don't use a WordPress SEO plugin, I use what's come with Genesis. And I get found underneath WordPress in the search engines in the first page. So you've got an option here to add your document title, your meta description. You've also got keywords. And you can also choose whether to use the no index, no follow, or no archive. And they're just pieces of information to tell the search engine robots whether to, index your site in their search engine results and follow links and things like that. You've also got the ability to change the layout there. So rather than sitting there with, your content and sidebar, you can also change this around, okay? So you don't need to have the default layout options. So based on all of that, this is what would come up here. So I've added in Rick Astley there because he's adorable. And here's my content just there. And if you go into the page source, you should see there's my title and my meta description. So that's what Google's going to, or Google and Bing are going to crawl through and index there. And you've got the keywords there, etc. So that's what you can add in there. So you can add in things like a video, and then you've got your blog posts underneath. The other one I've got is where I've actually added in an Aweber form here. So you've got the HTML code there for an Aweber form. Of course, I've styled it up just a little bit, but you can do something like that as well. So before all your content, all your posts, you can add in your email opt-in form. So you could do something like that as well. So they've come to your page. You can grab their details straight away and add them to your email list. Another example here is for Thesis. So if anyone's using Thesis, it's got the same kind of layout, although things are just a little bit different on the page. So you can use, title tag, the description, keywords, you've got your indexing there. And you've also got a canonical overwrite there as well if you need to use that. Rather than having some layout options, Thesis comes with the ability to create different templates, so you can create different looks on a category by category basis as well. So the look of that one is something like that, and there's your posts underneath. So that's just a little bit of a tip to think about with regards to content and getting it found. So, I'm getting found for a couple of terms, and everybody's seeing all of my posts in the one go, and I don't have to do much coding work at all. So I think that was it. That's it for my demo. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about the SEO.
I just think in terms of category pages, it's a bit of a sort of misconception that you should no index that page. And I think the reason is because not many people do what you've done. So it's a thin content. So essentially that's why some SEO plugins will give you the option to no index the category page. If used correctly, they're quite powerful.
Yep.
So it's worth that extra step.
I've also used it with, sorry. I was going to say I've also used it with membership plugins to show and hide particular content to members and non-members. So like I said, with short codes, you can embed that and do all sorts of things.
So to do that without Genesis and without Thesis, is there a way?
There is a plugin. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to show. Another thing I want to show you as well. There was one plugin that I found. Unfortunately, I've got a multi-site set up here. So while I was testing it, I don't think it's multi-site ready. But yeah, it was. Now, let me try and find it. Just trying to remember where I found it. This one, the WP custom category pages, it doesn't come with the unique SEO features, but that's something very similar that you could do. And I think that's also actually got the Tiny MCE editor there as well, so you can do a little bit of customization without needing to really know much about HTML tags. So that's one that I came across that worked quite well. Another thing you could add in is, you might have seen I've got this reorder here, and the plugin is called, let's go and grab the plugin. Damn it. Is this reorder posts within categories. And what this will do, I'll go back to my dashboard, down here. You can, it's actually a little bit of French in here, so as long as you know a bit of basic French, you'll be fine. You can select the category you want to organise, and you can say, oui, yes, you want to organise it yourself, or non, I don't want to. And you can actually just drag things around as well. So if you've got a few posts down the bottom that you want to sort in a small order, rather than using things like, ascending and descending, you can just drag and drop things like that and it will slot it into place for you. And it automatically saves, and then you just go back and have a look how it looks. So if you've got posts down the bottom and you want to kind of make a few, featured posts up the top, I know you can do that with things like stickies and stuff like that, but that's another way of going about it. So that was another thing I wanted to show. So, yeah.
How did you remove category from the URL?
Sorry?
How did you remove the word category from the URL?
I've actually got the word category there, but a way to remove it from the URL is in the settings and in permalinks. And just here, you've got your category base. Because this is a multi-site setup, that's why it's got the blog there. But that's where you could change category to something else and tag to something else. So on my main site, I've got categories as tutorials and then tags as how-to. So that's how the permalink is set up there. See if I can grab it back. Yeah, so I've got tutorials there rather than categories. So that's another way of doing that. That's it. All good?
That's just posts, it's not custom post types?
That's just posts, yeah. You probably could do the same with custom post types as well. A little bit of fiddling around with the archive page, but you would be able to do it. That's it.
Hi everyone, my name's James Bundey. A post, or what I'm going to talk about today, it's just really a little system that I set up a while ago, running for a while, and it was really just a way of automating updates to social media accounts and doing that in a process that happens as you're developing content on WordPress. First of all, just a bit about me. I'm part of Creative Approach, a small digital marketing agency. We build a lot of custom WordPress websites. We do a lot of other stuff as well. Personally, I've worked in a variety of marketing roles for a number of years, 17. Unfortunately, I'm getting old and I'm realizing it more and more. Nowadays, I typically float between doing a lot of consultancy for people and then just developing digital products. And I think I've roughly been working for WordPress for 4+ years. So when I started doing this, the thought process that sort of came about was I was really looking for something that enabled some effective measurement of what was happening with my website and social media in regards to sharing and also actually then seeing if anyone else is forwarding that sort of stuff, what's coming actually from my website itself. But really, the ultimate thing was I really wanted to save time and effort. So I was looking at how can I automate this process, but also still give myself some flexibility. Because once you automate something, the biggest problem for everyone is by automating it, you have to add a certain element of predictability to it every time. And I was sort of very wary that you don't typically want your social accounts to look like a robot's running it, because that's essentially what's happening. So I was looking at different sort of ideas, different sort of software and apps out there. And then ultimately, again, at the end of the day, if we could do it for free, that would be fantastic, because I am dying from buying SaaS products every month and the $500 to $1,000 I spend every month on all these stuff. So if we could do it for free, brilliant. So my process that I was thinking about was really, I wanted to focus on the usual suspects of social media. So in the example I was looking for, I wanted to grab my WordPress content and I wanted to share it to a Facebook page, a Google Plus page, and a LinkedIn company page. And what I'll run through now for you guys is the tools that I ended up using, why I chose them, and then I'll give you a brief understanding of how to set it up, but I'm not going to run a demonstration because it will just take a bit too long. But it's actually not a very complex process. So first things first, I actually wanted to measure and manage my social accounts. So we started using a tool called AddThis. It's at addthis.com, and I don't know if you guys aren't familiar with AddThis. They just provide a suite of tools, either on a free or professional plan. It's a lot of social sharing. To be honest, they produce a lot of tools that whenever you meet anyone, they say, I hate those things, like pop-ups and buttons and things. Everything everyone seems to hate, but everything everyone tells you does really well. If it does that, they build it. So what they do is they offer a number of free tools, and you can sort of see here, it's not very clear, but just standard social sharing tools, and it's a free offering they do. Basically, what you can go into there, log in, create an account, And what you just simply do is go, okay, I'm going to choose the social accounts I want. You grab the code and you paste it in. There is alternatively, you can download a WordPress plugin, but for this, a plugin's a bit of overkill, and I'm sort of more pro. If you don't really need to install a plugin, I wouldn't bother. So simply, and I'll show you the next screenshot, you end up with something like this. Is you go, okay, I want to just grab some buttons. They're going to give you all the different services, drag along the ones you want, and I've sort of put the 4 there, and it just gives you the little code, copy, and you paste it into your template where you want to put it in within your theme. And it's as simple as that. And what that's going to do now is it's going to add those buttons, probably if you're most probably putting it in your single template. So it's going to add those buttons in there. But what it's going to give you is it's actually going to give you something that you can come back and monitor. And every month it's going to shoot a report to you telling you which ones of your pages that have these buttons, where it's been clicked, how many times it's been clicked, all that sort of information. So it gave me a really good sort of starting point. But that was really going to only just measure. So what I wanted to do was automate. So for automation, we decided to go with Zapier, or as Dee tells me, it's Zapier. But then I argue with a 6-year-old every day about the pronunciation of yogurt, so what do I know? But I'm going to call it Zapier. So I went to Zapier, and Zapier is just, simply put, it's sort of an intermediary between different platforms. And what it enables your apps to do is it enables a multitude of different apps to talk to each other, has lots of different options. WordPress is one of those apps in particular you can use to run a process. So in this case, you could start a process that when you create a new post on WordPress, it can then talk to another application. A lot of the WordPress stuff that it works with, it does things with Gravity Forms, WooCommerce. I mean, I use it with MailChimp, Campaign Monitor. I use it with a lot of CRMs. So we use Gravity Forms. So we do a lot of anything from Gravity Forms. You can send it to company CRMs and don't have to worry about any integration. This does it all for you. It's actually very, very reasonable to do that. It's very, very easy to set up. And the great thing is, as I came back, let's do it for free. What they allow you to do is they allow you to do 5 zaps and 100 tasks per month. And a zap, in their reference, would be if you were saying, okay, I've got WordPress and I want to talk to Facebook, that's 1 zap. So if I go with WordPress and then to LinkedIn, that's 2. So if you're only looking at 4 major accounts, you can do that within your 5 zaps. And 100 just means that you can send 100 of those posts or those actions per month. So if you're a heavy user, you're going to have to pay. But if you're not, you can quite easily get that done through their free plan. So what you would typically do is you set up what's known as a trigger. So the first thing would be, okay, I'm going to choose my WordPress post to publish, and I'm going to tell it, and I think in this instance I've put Facebook pages. You would simply link those 2 accounts through. It takes you through a process, and to do that, you link WordPress just through your email and password into that WordPress site, and it's exactly the same with your Facebook account. You would just link it through your account details. It'll give you a nice little tick, and then the end of it, the main part of what you're doing is you're matching content. So in this instance, what Zapier will do is it will present to you the fields in question. So the first field is, because we've got multiple pages on our account, you choose the page you want to send to, and then what it's going to do is it's going to provide you those fields that Facebook wants to work with, and then you're just inserting the fields from WordPress to make that work. So one of the things that we found is, if you're not using it, the excerpt field in WordPress is fantastic for this, because what you can do is you can ultimately write a nice succinct sort of intro in that excerpt field rather than posting, because you don't really want to post your entire content in that field. So you can use the excerpt field, put it in there and say, yep, just grab that. And then I think underneath you can put text in, and then we just tell it to grab a link, and it does what any social media page will do. It'll just go grab that meta detail and take a picture, description, and everything else. It's going to embed that really nicely. So really what you're doing is it's a bit of plug and play, have a little trial. At the end of the day, whenever you set up any of these, Zapier will allow you to run like what they call test data. And what it will simply do is show you just side by side, this is my WordPress content, and this is where it's going to look, what it's going to look like in Facebook. But ultimately what I say to everyone is just trial and error. Just have a little play, work with it, see what works for you and how it works. But look, once it's set up, you're pretty much good to go. You save the Zap, and it sits there and it does that. However, what we found with Zapier, and this is where this process came about, was it is a great tool, but it doesn't support every social media platform. So what we needed to find was something that it would actually talk to, that would then talk to our social accounts, so sort of another intermediary for the intermediary. And primarily that was mainly Google Plus and LinkedIn company pages. And they're sort of, unfortunately, two types of social media accounts that aren't very well supported by a lot of applications. So what we did to find the workaround was we used something called Buffer app. And for those of you who don't know what Buffer is, it's just one of many social media management tools that are out there. We're not really using it in this instance to do what a lot of people use it for. For example, what you could do is you could sit there tonight and write in 17 tweets and schedule them to go out over the next 17 days, one a day, and you can schedule the time you want them to send and things like that. So it's quite powerful. We just really use it to gather that information. So again, what we're doing is we're registering with that. And one little tip for this is don't register with a social account, because we're trying to do this for free. And if you register it with your LinkedIn personal account, but you want to use a LinkedIn company page, it's going to kill you. Because what's going to happen is it's going to say, no, you've already assigned a LinkedIn account to it, so you're now stuck. And if you want to change, you're going to have to pay. So I say to people, always just register with a standard Gmail or whatever your personal email is. Again, simple setup, comes in, very, very basic setup. Register all your accounts with it. As you can see, they sort of line up on the left-hand side. Again, as I said, a free plan allows you to connect one of each. But for our case, most importantly for us, it did support LinkedIn company pages and then Google+. So once you've set that up, and we're literally talking like a 5-minute process, you would simply go back to Zapier. And this time, when we create our new Zap, we're talking about WordPress, but this time we're going to talk to Buffer. And what you need to do is you actually need to do this for every instance. So if we're using Buffer for Twitter, Facebook, and Google+, we're going to have to set up 3 Zaps of WordPress to Buffer, and then tell it in Buffer to talk to the Google+ account, and then to Buffer again, but tell it this time to talk to LinkedIn. So it's exactly the same process again. Register your WordPress account, register your Buffer account with it, sits in there, match your content again, and I think on this example it's a bit blurred, but this is sort of just a bog standard one I think we use for a blog update, or like a portfolio update. Yes. So we put a little bit of text in there, and all we call is like the post title, and then we just call the link to the page, and again, that does the rest. That will just put a nice image in there, or put the link in there, or do everything we need it to do. So what we then do with that is, with Buffer, it has 2 other tools, and it has scheduling tools. We set them both to yes, which means as soon as you publish it, it will just send it straight away to your social media accounts. But if you wanted to, you could, especially if you want to do it at a certain time of the day, you could simply set that to no, and then in Buffer itself, you could say anything that I'm posting to Twitter, I only want to do between like 10:30 to 12 on a Wednesday. And so if you publish something tomorrow, it's just going to sit there until next week, and then it will send it out. So again, once you've set it up and done that, I'll go back, sorry. You simply save it, and again, it just sits there, and it will just work through. And basically now what you've got is you're using 2 different sort of accounts, but every time you do anything on your WordPress site, it's just going to simply take that information and it's just going to push that straight to your social media accounts.
Then disconnected the, Facebook talking to Twitter, so that because otherwise, I guess you could end up with multiple reposting.
No, they don't talk to each other. Basically, what you're basically the simple process is I create my content. I click publish on my content, it goes to Zapier. Zapier goes, aha, it's published something. I need to speak to Facebook, I speak to Twitter, I speak to LinkedIn, I speak to Google+. Every single one of those apps is an independent Zap of each other. So like for Twitter, you're not going to put the excerpt in there because it's going to be too long. So what you might do is the matching of the fields, you're probably only going to put a title and then -link to put the title of the post. Yeah. That's gonna. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, if you've got those things where, if I tweet something, it goes straight to my Facebook. It's gonna overload on those things. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. This is like I don't do any of that stuff, so I'm not. But yeah, it would override that, and you'd just be doing it multiple times.
And the reason you would do it this way is because you get the statistical measurement.
Yeah. The aim of all of this stuff ultimately is you get stats. So when you if you're setting up your social buttons through Add This, you're going to understand how much of your content's being shared independently of this. When you do this, you're going to be able to see through Buffer how many people click through. But then, and this leads on to the other bit and comes back to what I was sort of saying about Twitter. Another tool that we then integrate with it, there's a lot of tools here, I'm afraid, is we use Bitly, and we were using Bitly anyway, but for you that don't know, Bitly basically provides lovely shortened URLs. And we were using that anyway for a lot of our Twitter feeds and stuff. But what you can, and again, it's a great tool. It will provide viewing stats, and it will also provide you stats on anyone else that's then reusing that link in Twitter and things. But what you can actually do with Bitly, and the reason we chose it, is in Buffer, you can integrate those two accounts. So you can connect your Bitly account with your Buffer account, which basically means if I create my post tomorrow, as soon as it sends my Zap out to talk to Twitter, it's going to take my URL and it's going to shorten it into my Bitly URL. So it's going to do all these things for me. So you haven't got to worry about the pace of doing it and your URL being too long character-wise, which everyone's been to a website and gone, I want to share that on LinkedIn, and then you press it and it's 240 characters, and you're like, yeah, brilliant, I can't share it. So it does that all for you. So you don't have to worry about the length of your pages. It will automatically talk that. And the other thing with Bitly is, and I haven't talked about it in this, but you can actually integrate, you'll need to do a bit of code, I'm afraid, but you can integrate your Bitly account into Add This. So on any of your pages that are using Add This buttons, if someone clicks on Tweet This page, it will create a Bitly link rather than your page URL, which again avoids the concern of massively long URLs. So the actual way I've presented this isn't probably the way you would do it, but it doesn't make sense saying, hey, go into Buffer first and register all these accounts because we're going to come back to do something. So the way I would actually do it in real life is I'd set up Bitly first, go to Add This, set up my Buffer account, and then set up my Zapier account. But it doesn't make sense to present it that way. Yes, Dee?
So why don't you just put everything, why do you do Add This and then Buffer? Why don't you just put everything through Buffer?
You can. I just want to, generally what it does is, Buffer doesn't give you as much control as one of the other apps. Like Buffer was really just the solution to LinkedIn company pages and Google Plus pages. And it was just really that there is no one, you'd think that there'd be one. No, and you could.
It seems like it would shorten some distance.
But to be honest, even if you set up Facebook in Buffer, you still have to create the Zap anyway. So you're still doing the same process, but you can do it, yeah. But it doesn't, there's no sort of like, hey, I want to create one master Zap, so to speak, and that's going to send it to all four. You still have to create independent process for each.
And the stats management is better in Add This, which is why you're there.
The Add This is sort of, is totally really independent of the process. The Add This was just, when I started doing this, or we started putting this together, was the end game was I want to see figures. You know, if we're going to go through all this effort, I wanted to see some figures. So just a few things to remember. And that was it. I apologize if it made people's head hurt, because it is a bit of too many things going on. Every Zap is linked to your WordPress account. So if you do change your password on that WordPress account, it will stop working, because it needs to talk to that at every time. So if you do, you've got to remember, if you're a frequent password changer, you're going to be doing a lot of updates in Zapier every time, because it's not going to be able to communicate with your WordPress website once you change that password. You're going to have to update that connection. As I said before, the excerpt field is fantastic for matching fields, but look, we build only custom themes when we do it. So when we're using this tool, it's fantastic because we'll have a certain excerpt function that means that it's not going to mess up our site. But if you start messing with the excerpt field, do check your site, because it might mess up areas, because it's probably going to override certain landing pages and any of your RSS feeds. So always have a little check with that. As I said, everything I've shown so far, you can do this all for free. Don't have to spend any money. But if you are a heavy social user, you're going to need more than one account. Or if you need more than one account for a social platform, like if you want to do LinkedIn, your personal page and your LinkedIn company page, you're going to have to pay. With the tools that I've mentioned, if you end up being quite aggressive, because they never go from like 5 to 7, it's like 5 to 50. So you're probably going to end up spending maybe about $100 to $200 a month if you do it. But if you're not a big social user, you can get away with it for doing nothing. And we have quite a few sites that does it for nothing. And then, as I said before, I would tweak and test as required. And really what that is just review the it's called Zapier, it should be Zapier test data, and see how it works. Like, as a good example, like we've done things where we've pulled the thumbnail and put it into a Google Plus post, and it just doesn't look very nice on your Google Plus page. So typically now we just drop that, put in the excerpt, and then just add a link, and the link will do the rest. It will take that meta details and create a really nice looking post for you. But it's all just really how you want it to work. So I just say to people, sit there with a social media account, get ready to hit delete really quickly, post it, because it will, unfortunately there's no sort of dummy testing. You have to do it on a live site. So you do it, update it, test it, and see how it works for you. But that is it. Any questions? And you can connect with me if you want. And I do, if you're interested in, I write quite a bit about marketing stuff. And you can check out our blog where I write bits about branding and setting goals and things like that. But yeah, has anyone got any questions? Yes.
Something I use at the moment extracts stuff out quickly, which is fine with text, but sometimes it grabs the wrong image. How does your process?
Basically what it does is when you insert a field, I'm just typically grabbing the featured image. So I'm really just pulling it from the featured image tool. It's not going to be able to grab an image that you've just inserted into the editor. We do a lot of stuff with ACF, Advanced Custom Fields. So because that's a separate, if it's got separate meta details, you can grab it as a field. But typically what we're just grabbing is just the featured image link. We're going to grab and we're not, you can actually grab the different size, but we just say, okay, grab the featured image link, and it's going to grab the original image and it will just rescale it. But that work, and we do that for Twitter, but for most of the others, because of the way the social media accounts sort of, when you embed a link, it always does it in a nice fashion anyway. We just say grab the perm, we insert the permalink and say grab that, and then what it's going to do is it's just going to create that sort of clickable area with an image anyway. So just do it that way.
Add to the conversation, do you use the Bundey API as well for custom URLs?
The only thing we use it for is we embed it into the code that we insert with add this. Add this provides the code. I really don't use many plugins unless it's essential. So you could probably type add this into the WordPress repository, get their plugin, and it probably does it all for you with a couple of clicks, but we just simply take the code. But yeah, and that's the problem with all the social media plugins. The problem with any of that stuff is they just kill your machine. So by doing it this way, it's like we only grab what we want. It's as lean as we can make it. It's not going to it's not going to load 100 JavaScript files. It's not going to keep loading their independent CSS files. So what you actually do is you just put a little bit of code inside, and it's really simple. I think if you go to the Add This website and type in bit.ly links, it's in their blog with WordPress, and you just insert, it's probably a line of code, and what it does is if anyone's on your page and they click the tweet button, it will talk to your account, generate that code, and automatically put that into your Bit.ly feed. So you can actually see if people tweeting and how successful their retweets then therefore are as well.
And what about for Buffer? Because with Buffer we can actually integrate the Bit.ly API. So the kind of bonus points where the people's heads are probably spinning, but sometimes on Twitter you might see that people actually have like a condensed version of their name as a URL, and you can actually, if you grab the domain name, you can actually change, I think it's the A name record, and then
we've never done that. We just simply tell it, hey, chat to it, talk to each other. Yeah. I might look into that now. Don't. You're causing me more work. Stop making it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's combining quite a few things, but once you've done it, you've done it. You haven't got to really come back to it anymore. It's just initial setup is done. It's just unfortunately there's no wonderful one product fixes all. So it was sort of like just through a bit of trial and error and a bit of testing and finding out, okay, what can I get to talk to each other that's going to do what I need it to do? And
I guess that's probably just more of a party trick than anything else.
yeah, look, end of the day, it does what it needs to do, and I'm all for get the job done. Yeah. So there may be a leaner, cleaner way, but hey, if anyone's got it, come and tell me because. Okay, all right. Add this. What Add This is going to do is that's going to email you a monthly report. And Add This, you can have one account and you can have multiple websites on that account. So what that's going to tell you is that all that is telling you is, say you produce a blog post tomorrow, and you go live, and the add this will have those social buttons in. You have 150 people turn up, and 70 people have clicked on various social buttons to reshare it. You will get that data. Add this will record that data, and it will just keep recording that for the life of that post. So at first, you'll probably get a lot of hits, and then over weeks and months, over months that come, you'll get very few. So that's just telling you, okay, that's how many times it was shared. And it's not providing you anything you couldn't go and find out. It's just saving you the time of having to do that, to find out. So that's going to tell you that. Buffer is basically going to tell you what click-throughs you have on the links that you're then pushing out. But to be honest, because you're using Bitly to do it, you could just go to Bitly and get that information. And that will say, this is what produced that click-through.
Any of those websites, do they have any way to integrate Google Analytics perhaps somewhere?
To integrate, sorry? Google Analytics. Do you know, I wouldn't know. You'd have to have a look. I know it would be interesting. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, because ultimately a lot of the data it's giving you is primarily you're going to find out in analytics anyway, because if someone's clicking on that link, they're coming via that social media platform. But sort of the links that people are sharing, it's outside of your website anyway. So that data that's just really, it's just a measurable to see how much they engaged with an outside audience more than anything. And then you could look at Google Analytics and find out what came back. What add this does is it adds a unique code to any page where you have those, but it'll add a unique code to the URL, and that's how it measures click-through and share and all that stuff. So you will be able to see that in your analytics, that's the pages they've come through.
I just wondered if you do anything with the not coming across like a robot in a way.
Yeah, it's...
The thing I see on company pages a lot is that seem to have systems probably much simpler than this, but they just post about themselves all the time, and that doesn't give me a very nice feeling about the company when they're just
I think...
posting their own content and exclusive to that. So, because maybe they're not actually logging into their Facebook every now.
Okay, so you're saying you prefer sites that don't just show their own information, so they're grabbing other people's information sharing?
No longer having to use
You can do things like that with Buffer. Buffer will make recommendations on content that you could potentially share, and you can automate it through them, but you will need a paid account to do it. So, but this is just purely, it's my site, I update my site, it shares my information. But I know with Buffer that you can look into grabbing other information, but personally I'm not a big, automatic, I won't share anything unless I've read it, or if I actually really like it, or I think it's any value. I'm not really a share for the sake of sharing type thing. And I know it's hard because everything you read tells you that you should tweet to death, and then you'll get loads of followers, but it's like, anything coming from it? Do I care? Do I need to be loved? No. I'm quite happy with my life, so you can look at it that way. But no, we can't do that. Any more? No? Right, thank you.